Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us continue with the chapter Diversity in Living Organisms. Fine, and this is the 14th theory session of this chapter, and till now I have already explained the basic characteristic features of the five kingdoms. What are these five kingdoms? The kingdom Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. Right? In the earlier session, I discussed about the sub-classification of kingdom Plantae into different divisions. Right? The kingdom Plantae is divided into groups which are known as the division. Right? In the case of group animals or in the kingdom Animalia, they are subdivided into the groups which are known as phylum. So if we compare Plantae and the Animalia kingdom, then division and phylum, they are placed at the same hierarchical level. Fine. Now in today's session, I am going to discuss about those basic features which are compared in animals so as to subclassify them into different phylums. Let us continue. So students, you know which organisms belongs to group Animalia or to the kingdom Animalia? These organisms, they are made up of eukaryotic cells, or we can say the organisms which are made up of eukaryotic cells. They are multicellular, heterotrophic organisms and they lack cell wall. So such organisms, they are placed under the kingdom Animalia. Now, as I said, there are basic features like eukaryotic, multicellular, heterotrophic, and no cell wall. So, out of this, multicellular, it means what? They are made up of many cells. Now, how these cells are organized, right? What type of body organization is there among these cells? So, with these cells, so all these basic features will help to subclassify the animals. Right, and as such type of body organization is increasing or the complexity is generating in these organisms, the different types of features will also appear, isn't it? Similarly, for heterotrophic nutrition, definitely in the heterotrophic also, what type of food they are, how they are eating their own food, right? How they are obtaining their food, even that is something which will help in the classification of these organisms. Or we can say that the mode of nutrition will vary in these organisms, right, in different groups. So let me tell you some of the basic features of these animals, and which becomes the base for the subclassification of the organisms or the animals. Fine. The first feature which is generally compared is the habitat. Organisms or these animals, they can be aquatic, terrestrial or aerial. That means aquatic, you know very well that they can live in the water, or they can and this water, it can be either fresh water or it can be saline water. So with respect to water, definitely the habitat varies, like it can be a sea, it can be ocean or a pond or a river and so on, right? Terrestrial, now in terrestrial, of course, they can live in different conditions, like in dry conditions or in wet conditions, or I can say like in grassland or in the desert. Depending on that, the one which is living on land is said to be terrestrial. Then comes aerial. Now, aerial is basically that class, that habitat in which the organisms, of course, they are resting on land only, but they are able to take flight. Or they can fly. So such organisms, they are said to belong to aerial habitat. Fine. Let me show you some pictures. See, here is a description of habitat in which the organisms are classified on the basis of their habitat. See, this is a picture which is octopus, right? Octopus, you know very well where it is found. It is found in the water body, right? So it is an aquatic animal. Then spider, this spider, you can observe it at your home itself. right? Of course, there are different species of spiders, but definitely you know very well that these organisms, they are found on land, so they are terrestrial. Then the birds, they can fly, so they will belong to aerial animals. Fine. Uh, Depending upon the habitat. Initially, Sir Aristotle had classified these organisms, right? But definitely only habitat is not the right way so as to classify these organisms, because you can see that within the same particular habitat there are different types of organisms. For example, if I say that octopus belongs to this water body, that is, it is found in the water. So, in water body or in the aquatic habitat, there are many different types of organisms which are not having the similarities with this octopus, right? For example, fish, which is very much different from the octopus, right? Similarly, starfish, isn't it? Sea anemone. There are many different types of animals within the water which belongs to different categories, which can range from the mammals, right? That is the highest vertebrata, till the unicellular organisms like protozoa, like amoeba, or simple multicellular like sponges or the hydra, any of it. So main thing is that the same habitat is having different types of organisms, and thus we cannot simply classify the organisms on the basis of habitat, and thus there should be some broad criteria. So what is that next feature that we can compare in these organisms? Let me show you. The next feature should be, it can be like habit, that what type of life these organisms are leading. Depending on that, they can be free living, it can be sedentary, or it can be sessile, or so on, right? What this means is, they can be like independently leading their life. They are free and they can move from one place to the another. Whereas there are some species which are living, or they are attached to some substratum. They do not move from one place to the another. So such type of habit is also observed in such organisms. Not only this, there are the organisms which are living in groups, like they are gregarious or they are living in a colony, right? And some are there which are living a solitary life. Solitary means they are living as a single independent organism, right? Like we all organism, we the human beings, right? So this is the next feature, next thing that could be compared in these animals. Further, the next feature to be compared is the nutrition. So nutrition, it can be, see, nutrition is a way, or it is a process by which the living organisms obtain the food or they synthesize the food. Food is essential for life, isn't it? And there are two ways by which this food can be provided to the organism. Either they can obtain it from some other organisms, right? Or they can synthesize themselves. So here in the animal kingdom, these organisms, they always show heterotrophic nutrition. This is a strict and peculiar feature for the animals. So they are obtaining it from surrounding, and definitely depending upon that what type of food they are obtaining and from what sources, the nutrition can be of different types. Like it is saprophytic, parasitic, or holozoic. Saprophytic means what? The organisms, they obtain the food material from the dead and decaying material. Parasitic, in which the organisms are living inside the host body, or they are living over the host body and obtaining the food from other living organisms. The simplified food which is present in the host body, that is serving as the feed for some of these living organisms. So such mode is known as parasitic. Then holozoic. Holozoic, in that the organism is ingesting the food material, the complex food material inside the hollow tube or inside the hollow structures within the body, and is digesting it with the help of some enzymes. So such type in which the complex food is ingested and then it is digested completely inside the body itself. So such process is known as the holozoic and is common mode in the higher animals. There are many parasites among these group also, right? Then the next is the body symmetry. It is one of the important features so as to subclassify these organisms. Or I can say that the organisms they vary with respect to their symmetry. So according to that they are placed in different subgroups. Right. The symmetry it can be like asymmetry, bilateral symmetry, or there can be radial symmetry. Spelling mistake is here. This I will not come here. I'm sorry for that. These organisms they can show different type of symmetry in their body organization. Fine. For this I must show you some chart and the diagram so that it will be more clear for you to understand. So here is the chart. Body symmetry. Basically what it means, it is the similarity of body design in different region or direction or in the plane. See, structure whether it is uniform or irregular, whether it is the different parts are equivalent to each other, such type of pattern is actually known as symmetry. Now, if I compare it with the body or the living organism, then definitely I can call it as the body symmetry, right? That how the body looks in different planes. Fine. With on the basis of this thing, these organisms they can be asymmetric, it can be radially symmetric, or it can be bilaterally symmetric. Asymmetric means what? In this, the organisms they cannot be cut into equivalent halves through any plane, and thus these organisms they tend to have a irregular shape. So in this if I am saying that we cannot cut the organism, so it is not like you have to cut the organism with a knife, but actually what I mean is by this is that we can divide the organism into through a particular plane. So these organisms from any plane they do not look alike. We cannot superimpose the picture or the different parts of these organisms. Fine. And such a symmetry is known as asymmetric structure. Example, like as you can easily understand with the help of amoeba. Over there it is having irregular shape, right? And if you just divide it from any plane, do you think it is matching with each other in through any plane? You can just try out here. See, let me say if I draw this structure here, let us say this is an amoeba, right? So can we divide it through particular plane? Because it is having irregular shape. So which two half is which it seems to be like similar to each other? See, if I cut it in this plane like this, right? Can you say this left and right parts are equivalent to each other? Or if I cut it diagonally like this, can you say these two structures are similar to each other? No. So this is what we mean by the asymmetric structure. Besides amoeba, amoeba is a unicellular organism, and we usually place this organism in the group Protista, over there in the protozoa, right? The primitive type of unicellular organism. But here we are studying about the multicellular animals. So in multicellular animals, the example that could be given here is the sponges. So if we try to divide these sponges in any plane, it is not going to show any symmetry, and thus they are having asymmetric structure, right? Then the next is radially symmetric. Radially symmetric is a type of symmetry in which the organisms can be divided into two halves through any radial plane. In these examples are like corals, hydra, starfish, etc. See, you can see this structure. In this particular structure, the organism is divided through any plane, right? In a radial manner. So in this case, each section is having a equivalent symmetry, isn't it? They are equivalent or they are similar to each other. right? So such symmetry is known as radial symmetry. And for bilaterally symmetric, in this the organisms are divided into two halves through only a vertical plane. That is important, right? It is not through any plane, right? It is only through the vertical plane in the central position. So such organisms, in this case the left and right parts seems to be similar. For example, like earthworm, human beings, cockroach, scorpions, etc. You can see this diagram here. In this picture or in this diagram, if we are cutting it or dividing it through this vertical line, through the central line of this organism's body, then you can say that the left and right part is equivalent, right? They are similar to each other. And if you cut it through this transverse plane or through any other plane, can you find any symmetry? No, you cannot. So such type in which they are symmetric through a single plane, that is known as a bilateral symmetry and is commonly found in most of the organisms. So for the next criteria to compare these organisms, let us see in the flowchart. The next feature to be compared is the organization of body. It is actually related to that how the cells are organized, whether it is arranged in the form of simple cells only, or they are forming the tissues or the organs or the organ systems, and how much development is there within these organ systems. That is the next criteria so as to compare these organisms. For example, in the organisms like these lower organisms like sponges, or the cycons, spongilla, or the hydra, these organisms, they are actually not having this I'm sorry, not hydra, right? The sponges, cycons, they are not showing the tissue development. There is a very minimized this tissue development, so they are generally said to be acellular, right? Such type are there. Further, the animals are there like hydra, like platyhelminths, and so on. So these are not having the developed organs in them, but tissues are of course still developing over there. And as we proceed, we can compare that there is the development of the organs. Then as we go further in the upper these phylums and all these groups, you will see the complexity generating in the same organs and the organ systems. So that is the further criteria to observe the body organization or to classify the living organisms. Next is the germ layers. Now germ layers, I can say that in the embryonic phase, how the organisms are developed, that body parts are developing from how many embryonic layers or the germ layers, that is further the basic feature so as to classify the animals. And depending upon this, the organisms, they can be diploblastic or triploblastic. Let me show you one flowchart to explain it. See, as I said that all multicellular organisms, they develop from the tissue layers, and these tissue layers is known as the germ layers. During which phase? During the embryonic phase, right? Animals are they are growing from these embryonic as an embryo itself, isn't it? In the lower I can say like during the lower phase of their reproductive cycle, they grow as an embryo, isn't it? So how these cells are present in the embryonic phase, how the development is taking place, that is further classifying the organisms as diploblastic or triploblastic. Diploblastic, it means there is a development from the two primary germ layers. The outer is the ectoderm and the inner endoderm. Here the development from mesoderm is missing. So such organisms are known as the diploblastic organisms. The common example is like Coelenterata, the group Coelenterata. This Hydra, these organisms, they come in this category, right? Like corals, fine. Then the next one is the triploblastic. Triploblastic, where the development takes place from three primary germ layers. What are these three layers? The outer ectoderm, middle mesoderm, and the inner one endoderm, right? And all the higher organisms, they are coming under this category. I can say like the organisms except those which belong to group Porifera and Coelenterata. All these organisms, they are actually triploblastic. Now, as these three layers are there, further we have to look for the next criteria, and that is the cavity. That means a space which is present between the mesoderm and the endoderm. So on that basis, the further classification is done, or the different feature is observed in different organisms. And depending upon this cavity, these organisms, they can be acoelomic, pseudocoelomic, eucoelomic, and hemocoelomic, or hemocoelomate. I can better call them as the cavity is acoelomic, and the organism which is having this acoelomic cavity is known as acoelomate. And same will be true for the pseudocoelomate, eucoelomate, or hemocoelomates. Fine. Acoelomic means what? This A means where the it shows absence. So the organisms where this cavity is absent is known as the acoelomic cavity. Then pseudocoelomic, in which the false type of cavity is present, where the separation between the endoderm and the mesoderm is not completely observed. It is not separated by the mesenchymal lining. Then eucoelomic, that means which is having a completely developed cavity in which the true organs can be placed properly. Hemocoelomic means that in which the cavity is present and is filled with the blood. And the true eucoelomic means the true cavity is actually limited, or it is reduced to only few body parts. Fine. So let me show you again one flowchart to explain it. You know what is exactly meant by this coelom, or the body cavity? It is related to the space which is present between the body wall and the internal gut, and this they are separated, or they are lined by the mesodermal layer. So such space is known as a developed coelom. Right. Now, whether it is there is a space between the internal gut and the body wall or not, or also whether they are having a proper mesodermal lining over there or not, that is further classifying the organisms. Right. So in acoelomate, there is no space between these endoderm, mesoderm, or in the endoderms. Right. And of course, therefore, there is no true body cavity is present. Examples of this group, this type of cavity or this type of feature, they are the organisms that belongs to group Porifera, Coelenterata, and Platyhelminths. These three phylums, they are having the organisms in which such acoelom is present. Right? Then there, or I can say there is no body cavity in such organisms. In the case of pseudocoelomates, a false body cavity is present. That means there is a space between the mesodermal tissue and the endodermal tissue, but they are not separated by the mesodermal lining. Right? So they are not truly separated from each other. And such a type of cavity is observed in the nematodes, or the organisms that belongs to group Nematoda. Then comes the eucoelomate. Eu means true. So here in these organisms, the true cavity is present. True cavity means what? A developed space is there between the mesodermal and the endodermal tissues, and they are well separated from each other by the proper mesodermal lining. And this type of cavity is observed in the annelids, or in the arthropods, or in the higher animals also. Fine. So further, the next point to compare here is the reproduction. So these organisms, either they can reproduce by the asexual method or by the sexual method. So asexual, in which the sexual organs are not involved. So you know what are these asexual mode of reproduction? What are different types? It can be like fragmentation, or as it is observed in the poriferans. Then there is regeneration, budding, etc. Fine. Then in the sexual mode, there is the fusion of a male and a female gamete. That means sperms get fused with the female gamete, that is the ova, and then the zygote is produced. This zygote develops into the embryo, and then embryo will develop into the fetus and the and in a mature individual organism. Fine. In sexual reproduction, further they are classified on the basis that how or where the development is taking place. That means whether they are laying eggs, so definitely the development will take place outside the mother's body, inside the egg. Initially it will begin in the female's body, but later it will continue externally in the eggs. Whereas if it is viviparous, then definitely the complete development occurs inside the mother's body, and they actually give birth to the young ones. So this is that the organisms can be oviparous or the viviparous. So in such a way, the different animals are classified on the basis of different features. Besides this, in the case of higher category, the additional important feature to classify organism is the presence or the absence of the notochord. Notochord is I can say like um, it is a rod-like or cord-like structure which runs at the back of the organisms, and it is separating the nervous tissue from the this vertebral column. Right? I'm sorry. Nervous tissue from the gut lining. Right. So whether this structure is present or not, on this basis the animals are classified. So in the next session we will continue, and I will discuss that how the classification or what type of phylums or classes are present in the animal kingdom, and over there I will discuss all these features in each group. See, these features, whether it is acoelomic or the different types of cavity or whatever, it is essentially required to understand. If you don't understand the meaning of these terms, then definitely you will be you will remain little bit confused when you study about other groups, right? So as these terms are repeatedly used in each session further, so therefore this introductory session is really very important. Fine. So now we will continue in the next session. Till then, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.